Welcome to the regular Cedar Falls City Council meeting this January 16th, 2017. I'll now call this meeting, the Cedar Falls City Council to order and ask for a roll call from Madam Clerk, please.
Miller?
Here.
DeBoer? Here. Runchie?
Here.
Blandford?
Here.
Dara?
Here.
Wieland?
Here.
Tiber?
Here.
All members are present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item C, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting January 3rd?
So moved.
Second.
Move in second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I do have the pleasure of reading a proclamation for the National Mentoring Month. It is presented to me from Katie Orlando from the Big Brothers and Big Sisters. It reads in part, whereas National Mentoring Month is a time we honor the caring individuals across the city of Cedar Falls who are committed to helping the next generation of Americans reach their full potential. Whereas a mentor is a caring, consistent presence who devotes time to a young person to help that young person discover personal strength and achieve their potential through a structured and trusting relationship. Whereas quality mentoring encourages positive votes would be counsel, positive choices, promotes self-esteem, supports academic achievement, and introduces young people to new ideas. Whereas mentoring programs have shown to be effective in combating school violence and discipline problems, substance abuse, incarceration, and truancy. Whereas youth development experts agree that mentoring is critical to the social, emotional, and cognitive development of youth, helping them navigate the path to adulthood more successfully. Whereas all the above listed benefits serve to link youth to economic opportunity while also strengthening the fiber of our communities. Whereas the City of Cedar Falls appreciates the contributions of all those who serve as mentors, and Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa for bringing your certified mentoring programs to the City of Cedar Falls for all to benefit. Now therefore I, Jim Brown, Mayor of the City of Cedar Falls, Iowa, do hereby declare in the City of Cedar Falls, January 2017 as National Mentoring Month, and call upon public officials, business and community leaders, and educators, and encourage all Cedar Falls citizens to observe this month with appropriate ceremonies, activities, and programs signed this 16th of January 2017. So thank you for that, Katie. Moving on to item D, are there any agenda revisions, Madam Clerk?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item E is special order of business. E1 is a public hearing on a proposal to take action on a petition requesting the recreation of the downtown Cedar Falls Self-Supported Municipal Improvement District, or the SMID. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved, Mr. Mayor. Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That carries. Item B is any written objections filed with the city clerk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have, I have received one written objection, which I've placed on file, included in the council packet. Council should also note that I've placed a corrected version of the ordinance in front of council. The version in the packet had a Scrivener's error, incorrectly referred to Article 9, and it should have referred to Article 10 of the code.
Thank you. You'll have copies of that, I believe.
I don't believe I've seen the written objection. The written objection?
It would have been in the council packet.
Okay.
We can double check, make sure it's in there. And I believe we have Bob Seymour to discuss this briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As many of you know, the downtown SMID supports Community Main Street and was established in 1987. And every 5 years, that SMID district needs to be renewed by City Council and by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Currently, the existing district's set to expire in June of this year. So the city has received a request from Main Street to extend that district for another 5 years through June of 2022. They've submitted to the clerk petitions signed by 76% of the downtown property owners in favor of renewing this, representing about 80% of the valuation in that area. So some pretty strong support for renewal here. This request went to the Planning and Zoning Commission in December, and they recommended unanimous approval to council, and staff is recommending approval by council tonight as well.
Thank you. Item C is any oral comments? Any oral comments from folks who are attending this evening? Hearing and seeing none, I declare the hearing closed. Item 2 is pass an ordinance recreating the downtown self-supported municipal improvement district upon its first consideration. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. This requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next item is a public hearing on the proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the University Avenue Reconstruction Project, Phase 2, McLean Drive to Midway Drive. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of that publication?
Move to receive and file proof.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Any written objections filed with the city clerk?
I have no written objections on file, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. I believe first we have Michelle up to speak in relation to, or I'm sorry, Stephanie. Stephanie, you want to talk in relation to some housekeeping on Phase 1?
Sure, just a little bit of housekeeping. We've had a couple different questions that I thought I'd just go over before we start talking about the public hearing with the Phase 2 construction plans. In Phase 1, we're continuing to work on the street lights, and we have some of those functional. So far, the lights that are working for street lights include on the south side of University Avenue from Boulder to Dallas Drive, and then on the north side from Dallas Drive to Grove Street. And we'll continue to work on hooking up those lights, and you'll see more and more of the street lights turn on in the Phase 1 area. Also on Waterloo Road and University Avenue, that intersection, originally, when we opened it up for 2 lanes in each direction, that intersection had a signal at it. We found that it was a little confusing, and so we made changes to that to have it operate as a roundabout, and then more recently put some barricades in the middle to form that circle a little bit better, cone off some of the what might have been perceived as some extra lanes possibly in the old pavement area, so that will function as a roundabout. We just would continue to encourage motorists to take care, slow down as you're approaching the roundabout intersections. There is an advisory on slowing down, and just watch other motorists and be aware as you're in the intersection that there's some people that are still getting used to how the roundabouts function. We did want to point out that we've had a number of compliments about the increase in access along University Avenue. In the Phase 1 area, we have increased access at generally what we refer to as Royal Drive and Melrose, both on the north and the south sides there into what used to be frontage roads that now create more private driveways in those areas. So that's a little bit more direct access to some of the businesses fronting those. And then also, as we undertook construction, we've started to see some businesses making improvements on their property. We've seen other new businesses opening. So we're just excited that we see the private investment happening and that's following the public investment. So that's just a couple updates on Phase 1.
Great. Any comments by council at this point? Mr. Blanford.
Director Sheets, I just have one question. The last update we got, I think the projection was that we would have the street lights ready to go in January. Is that still going to be the case? Are we going to have the street lighting in Phase 1 ready to go, or are we going to have to push that?
I probably will let Michelle speak to that. I know that the cold weather has really impacted the progress, but maybe, Michelle, you might have some more details on their progress there.
We are actually hopeful that the lights will be turned on by the end of the week this week, weather dependent, obviously. So.
Very good.
Thank
Any
you.
further comments by council? Yes.
Since you brought up Phase 1, since the service roads were cut off, the back service roads being used more, what's the plans, or is there any plans on doing anything with those?
Are you asking more specifically about like on the mall property area, or?
Correct, the main route now that all the cars are going through to get to the different businesses?
Well, I think that as people recognize some of the added access points, they'll see a reduced need for some of that backage road use, but that will continue just like it has in the past. When the mall came through with their plat, we talked about a schedule of improvements, which did include making some improvements to that road. Not the entire extent, but there are portions that need a little bit more repair than others.
I guess to follow up on that, Director Sheets, I think I second Susan's concerns that parts of that road, I think, are degrading much quicker than they would have, and it's primarily due to our actions that have pushed traffic onto it. So I'm just wondering if we have some shared responsibility, or if the mall is not going to be able to fix those for a time period, if we need to take action on those rather than just let them continue to be dilapidated.
Well, the phasing that we talked about with them doing some improvements was to occur in 2018, I believe, because we knew we wanted to be done with all the construction in Phase 1 area, and schedule that so that we didn't have conflicts of two areas being closed at one time. So that's why they have a deadline of 2018.
How much of that area are they going to do? Do you know how far down it goes?
I'd have to go back and take a look at, we identified specifically some areas where we thought were needing repair, both on their parking lot as well as some of the, what we refer to as that backage road.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, thank you for that update in phase one. Now, Michelle is here to speak more pertinently, I guess, at least specifically or officially to the public hearing on phase two.
Hi, yeah, just an update for the public hearing for Phase 2. So again, this is going to be from McLean Drive, where Phase 1 has ended, to the city limits at Midway. We're going to be doing just about the same thing you've seen in the first phase. We're going to start with doing removals. We'll be doing utilities, paving. There's going to be a recreation trail on the south side and sidewalk on the north side. We're going to continue with the landscape and lighting, but it's all going to be very similar to what you've seen in phase one. So we're going to stage it and work through it. So this is kind of how we're going to plan on doing construction staging. The first part that you'll see underway will be most likely Cedar Heights to Midway. And then as soon as we get Waterloo Road done in the first phase, then you're going to see the area between Round to McLean done. And then the following year, we'll do the area between Cedar Heights and Round. So, but this is all contingent upon the contractor's schedule and the issues that will happen or can adjust. Some of the construction challenges we've got in this area are similar to the first phase. We've got business access and communication that we've got to continue to keep up, and then also the CenturyLink facility that's in this area. The construction costs for phase two is at $12.35 million, and you can see there that we are a little bit lower than the July 16 projection. This is the contract schedule that we've got. So tonight we're having the public hearing. We will have the bid letting on January 31st. It'll be at 2 o'clock. We'll accept a low bid on February 6th at the council meeting. And the same thing for the contract approval, as we'll be recommending approval on February 20th. And then what you'll see next is construction will hopefully begin in March and April, depending on the weather. And then we'll have, hopefully, again, depending on the weather, have a completion of fall of 2018. You guys have any questions?
Any questions from council? Mr. Blanford.
Michelle, can you just, the slide that had the challenges on it, can you just summarize so everyone understands, especially around CenturyLink and what our issue is with that?
Yep. So CenturyLink's got a pretty large facility that runs on the south lanes of the University Avenue. They haven't agreed to relocate yet. There are a number of conflicts. And so we're working through that with them and trying to either get them to relocate or we'll have to work around them during construction.
If they don't relocate, what kind of delay is that going to cause?
It'll be a substantial delay.
Do we have any mechanisms at which we can compel them to move if they refuse?
We are working with our city attorney on getting them to relocate.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Boer.
Can you explain how you'll do the transition from the city limits at Midway?
Yep. So the Midway will join with Waterloo Road, Waterloo city limits, and they're going to have 3 lanes coming into our 2 lane. So in order for safety, we do provide a lane, so in case somebody doesn't get over in time, there will be adequate room for them to merge over once they get through that traffic signal at Midway.
So they have already determined how many lanes they're going to have?
We are going to have 2 through lanes, but we are providing a safety lane in order for somebody, if they don't turn to go north onto Midway and they decide to go straight, there's going to be room for them to merge back over into the 2 through lanes.
Was your question if Waterloo has determined?
Right.
Oh, Waterloo. Sorry. Waterloo, I think they're going through their study right now, and I don't think that they're as far along as we are.
But you still have to do these lanes like you're talking about because this will be done way before
Correct.
their portion is.
Yep.
And then, can I ask one other
Please.
question? Can you break down on the cost, how this will be funded, how it's going to be paid for?
I know there's funding for road use tax, local option sales tax. We've got the jurisdictional transfer that we've got. There's some sanitary revolving fund, I believe, Jennifer.
Actually, I was just gonna, I think the main question that people have asked us, since it's over what was estimated, you know, how are we going to fund it?
Yeah, there's, I think that's been taken care of with Jennifer's budget.
In the CIP that we had the public hearing on last meeting, we had identified the various sources. Michelle talked about them. Obviously, the transfer of jurisdiction, sewer funds would be used for sewer improvements, local option sales tax, stormwater funds, CFU would be paying for theirs. We have applied for a Blackhawk Gaming grant and road use tax funds. I think probably to get to your basic question, Susan, and that is the added costs, and what made that up is we really went back to using local option sales tax. You know, originally we had it in there, we took it out, and then now that is the piece that will be covering what the increased costs were.
So will there be other roads not done then because of the use of this money for this project?
Well, in putting the CIP together, and I know just working with engineering and some numbers kind of going back and forth, you know, obviously we're accounting for in the CIP that West First Street may be coming. You know, so we looked at, okay, what would we have to scale down? Would we have to scale down the annual street repair program each year to help pay for that? And some of it was also, and do we also want to account for how do we build that reserve back up? You know, we always talked about that. We always kind of wanted 1 year reserve, you know, in local option sales tax. So we kind of looked through all those, and I think, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I want to say that it was just maybe reducing the annual street repair program just slightly each year.
I think about 500,000.
Okay. So that's what it would take to get there. So does that answer your question, Susan? So
basically,
yes, I guess that the programs would have to be reduced slightly each year.
And then it also took
that.
some of the reserve?
Well, we've been building reserves up for this project, you know, whether it's for this, West First Street, but what I meant by reserves is, like I said, we always talked about how we always wanted that 1 year reserve. So, you know, if we had contracts out and didn't have local option sales tax funding, we'd have that kind of 1 year left to pay for it. So that was included in that calculation on how much we would have to reduce the annual program each year.
Anything
Can I
further,
ask another
please, Frank?
funding question? The last 2 years, we applied for a Tiger grant, and personally, I think this project is a poster child for a Tiger grant, but with the fact that Waterloo now has their money for rebuilding University Avenue, has there been any discussion with Waterloo about applying jointly for a Tiger grant?
Yes, actually, we have started working with Intercog and the City of Waterloo to see if they are interested in that. But I think Michelle kind of summed it up. They're just starting their study phase, and they're not near far enough to get to that at this stage.
So,
But at this point, sorry.
as we
go ahead.
plan midway, will there be any flexibility there if, when they do have a plan that we can retrofit? I mean, is there any assurance that it'll be a smooth transition once they make a plan? Or is it worth waiting on that intersection for when they've made their plan?
We have met with the City of Waterloo Engineering Division and talked about that very subject, Frank. Our plan is set up right now that we can build our part of it, and if their plans come together fast enough, we will try to incorporate whatever improvements between the cities make sense so that neither one of us has to do something twice.
So they're thinking along those lines. They're going to try to accommodate that.
Yes, sir.
And the other funding thing on university is don't we have a $500,000 safety grant at Cedar Heights?
Well, and just to, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe regardless this next year, we'll look at all different ways to still go after Tiger grant. It might look different. It might be administered differently because what's happening in Washington, D.C., but it's not letting us drop our guard to go after the Tiger grant again.
Thanks.
and maybe I stand corrected, I'm not sure, but I believe that the transfer of jurisdiction for Waterloo also assumed that it was going down to a 4-lane road, not a 6-laner. So they'd be hard pressed to add additional lanes, I would think. So I think we want to coordinate this as much as we can so we don't overinvest in our section.
Anything further discussion? Thanks to council and to staff. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Item C is oral comments. We will open this up. See one individual would like to speak, and if you'd state your name and your address, and we'll allow 5 minutes for oral comments. 5 minutes apiece.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Larry Wyckoff, 4241 East Park Road, best state or city, Cedar Falls. Advocate for the people of Cedar Falls. The budget for the University Avenue overhaul has now swelled to over $38 million and will continue to swell with 2 more sections talked about tonight and hidden costs. We citizens were promised that the $32.5 million tab would not be exceeded, and then less than 2 months later, the plan zooms another $5 million. What is the total cost and anticipated cost overages to date for Section 1? This question has to be answered at the next meeting, and when are we going to be, the people in charge of this, going to be held accountable for staying within the cost overages? We were told that $12.5 million would be forthcoming from the Tiger Fund. Again, I swear I did not know how many times we're going to talk about the Tiger Fund tonight to defer costs on us citizens. However, that proposal failed twice and will result in other departments, like has been mentioned, and accounts having to be robbed to pay for the fiasco. We were originally told that the 3 sections could easily have been redone for $20 million by the state. What did they know that Foth and city planners have escalated to this terrible and obscene amount labeled 4C? The most critical point I want to make tonight concerns safety. So, Denny, I have a digital picture, 2 digital pictures actually. The one on the right illustrates the electronic pedestrian crossing at Round Street and University. Hardly anybody goes across that intersection. Then on the left is the pedestrian crossing today on University Avenue across from Pete Junior High in the background. As you can see, there's a lot more chance for kids getting maimed and killed on the one on the left than there is on the right because there's a school back behind there. This is the height of monolithic hypocrisy when comparing the 2 designations. Very, very disturbing. And I want to know, Mr. Mayor, how is this safe and better than the lights that were previously at this intersection to prevent children from getting hurt? It's now unsafe and unreliable, even with all the yield signs that are popping up. I don't know how much time I've got left, but I just want to reiterate, this project has been very concerning to a lot of citizens, and I know we're not going to stop, but I would think that we should stop some of the roundabouts and just leave it the way it is, kind of 2 lanes on each side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wyckoff. Before any other further comments, I want to ask anyone in city staff if they can address the safety image or asset that was up there in relation to what might be coming or what is already here.
The speaker referenced the pedestrian crosswalks at Boulder as the Pete Junior High crossing. There's actually a actuated crossing about a block towards the Deary and the subway direction, and that's a designated location where the sidewalk comes out from Pete Junior High to University Avenue, and that's the crossing right there. So there are other options that will be available.
And that
close
crossing, that crossing you're describing, that's more in front of that corner of Deary's over to the access from Pete.
Yes,
that
sir.
will have blinking lights as folks come to.
They're actually, they're ready, they're working right now.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we'll have a pedestrian actuated crossing at Round Street, but it'll be on a modernized signal system. So it'll be somewhat similar to what it is, but it'll be a narrower road because it'll only be 2-lane. There'll be a mid-block crossing at Goodwill. And then also at this point in time, we're planning the signals at Midway, and they'll also have pedestrian actuated crossing buttons there too. So.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. Any other comments, council, or from staff?
I think one other point to make about the intersection locations where we have the roundabouts and the crossings marked there is that they're crossing 2 lanes of traffic before there is a refuge, and then there's another point at which they can make a decision about crossing the additional 2 lanes versus crossing 6 lanes and not having any crosswalk marked. So that is one advantage to how we have those crosswalks marked at those intersections and how pedestrians can use those.
I guess I have a question. Is there, I know we have some places like by the pool, isn't there a state law about pedestrian crossing and that kind of stuff? Will those pedestrian crossings at the roundabouts be that same way if I mean, I really don't know. I'm not feeding you stuff here. If a person is wanting to cross there, does the pedestrian have the right of way, or does the pedestrian wait for the vehicle to go through?
Well, I can ask either our attorney or Jeff Olson to chime in on this, but as I understand it, if there are no vehicles coming and a pedestrian decides that it's safe to start crossing, then they have the right of way because they're in the crosswalk. If a vehicle's coming, they should be aware of that and not enter that crosswalk.
If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, the state code does indicate that a pedestrian in the crosswalk, the vehicle has to yield to that individual. Now, if they're not in the crosswalk, they're on the curb, then that doesn't necessarily apply. But I agree with Stephanie's assessment that somebody crossing the new University Avenue has 2 lanes to cross, vehicles coming from one direction, and then they can rest in the center lane until they can assess the other 2 lanes, and all those vehicles are coming from one direction as well.
Yep.
And you provide that with the very well marked crossing marks and the flashing lights that they will signal when they're ready to cross is very beneficial to the pedestrians.
That just might be one more educational piece that is, we move through this to make sure people understand that. I mean, I share the concern about safety, but I think these intersections are far safer than, plus the cars are going 15 miles an hour, not 45. I mean, right now, people crossing University do take their lives in their hands going across 6 lanes at 45 miles an hour. But still, I think as we go into this, continuing to educate the public on those issues is important.
Thank you again. Any further oral comments on the public hearing? Any of you state your name and address?
My name's Cale Larson, 2001 Sunnyside Drive. Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. Most specifically, I'm here to address the Round Street intersection. Excuse me. I was told 2 years ago when I came to the initial meeting that that intersection wasn't able to have a roundabout due to the prohibitive costs of acquiring land of the surrounding corners there. So my concern is that being a signalized intersection, to make sure that we get that right. So the first thing, I guess, would be, is there a plan for how that's to be signalized? I've seen the plans online that show an additional right turn lane. I believe that's a good thing to have that we don't have currently. Will those be signalized as they are, or would it be possible to have them be a southbound, northbound green light as they are at Cedar Heights currently? I believe that's a lot more efficient and a lot safer, particularly with the amount of traffic coming in the afternoon from Orchard Hill School and the additional traffic coming off of Green Hill and down Round Street into the northern part of University, or northern side of University from all of our shopping district on the south side of town now. So if that could be addressed going forward, I would appreciate it. That's an intersection I cross a couple of times a day, very near and dear to my heart, as the rest of University isn't really, because I don't travel it if I don't have to. That being said, I do think that the roundabouts are working well in their limited capacity that they are already, but I think moving forward, they'll be a good thing for all of us. So I guess a question, if perhaps that could be answered, if that signal has been looked at yet?
Thank you, Cale. I'd be happy to address the staff. Appreciate your concern. And that is a unique question, Randy. You know, we all wonder, in the old days, does University Avenue stay green all the time? And is there ways to try to coordinate those green lights, red lights? Does that carry over now to Round Street and the differences that it'll be intersecting University Avenue?
The signal system that's in place now will be completely dismantled, and a new system will be put in place with all the modern computerized control that we have in other areas of town. So I think you'll see marked improvements there.
Very good. Thank you. Any further comments? Name and address, please, so we know who you are.
Dave Deaver, 2441 Hawthorne Drive. Didn't plan to make a presentation today, but I'm an old dog and I got up too late to catch the community Main Street thing, so I thought I'd be an advocate for some other citizens on the roundabouts. And I'd have to say, you know, so far as I've driven the roundabouts and driven through that during the process of the construction, I want to commend everyone for the activity that's been done and the efforts to try to keep roads open and access to those businesses that are part of that area. I think you've done a great job. It may have cost us a few more dollars than what was anticipated in all of that effort, but I think those are dollars well spent for those businesses who work hard to remain in business and provide us goods and services for us citizens. Safety-wise, if Olson doesn't listen to this, I don't always go 15 miles an hour around the roundabouts, but I think as people gear up and learn and develop that, I love being up there where, I don't know what it is called now, Clarion Inn or whatever, and looking down and not seeing, the Christmas with red and green lights all over down those intersections, and be able to just move smoothly and proceed smoothly through University Avenue. Good comments about Round Street. I deal with Round Street often, and with bad knees and an old dog walking across Round Street today with that intersection, it isn't the best, but I look forward to the improvements and the efforts that will be made to make that work. So I think that's positive, and I thank the council and everyone involved in being progressive and thinking through what's best for the community in its entirety. And I thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate the comments. Any further comments?
Hi there, Jim Lound, 4410 University. I'd like some clarification a little bit on where you're starting, like on Cedar Heights, why you're doing it the way. It went from starting in April of 17 to now possibly being 17, 18, we're going to do this, this, and this. Can we have a little bit of a guideline of how we're going to attack that for the people on the corner and around there? Is it going to be April, we're going to do this, March, we're going to do this? Is it going to be November? We've gone from boom, boom, boom to 17 and 18. Seems like we need a little clarification. I'd like it explained exactly where we're going to start and go on that, if that would be possible.
Thank you. Absolutely. We'll approach council, the previous speaker, please. Michelle?
Hi, yeah. So we're planning on starting on that south frontage road between Cedar Heights and Midway, and then we're going to move to the north half of University Avenue in order to start constructing that. And I'm talking in regards to Mr. Lone's property. So, and then we'll continue to work on the north half of the roundabout, and that'll take quite a bit of staging in order to maintain access to the businesses around that corridor. And once that north half is done, then we'll proceed with the southeast half of the roundabout. So that'd be from Cedar Heights over to Midway. And then we're going to do the last quadrant, which would be the southwest quadrant of the Cedar Heights roundabout. So there's quite a bit of staging.
Thank you. Any further oral comments?
Sean Frederickson, 1111 Carriage Lane, Cedar Falls. I've got this whole statement. So I actually joined December 31st, the Planet Fitness in the mall, because I've been here for University Avenue Pro Roundabout. That road is better than I thought it was ever going to be. It's phenomenal. Keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Any further oral comments?
Mr. Mayor, just maybe a couple things real quick.
Please.
I think one of the reasons that we're starting the construction where we are on Phase 2 is because of what needs to take place with regard to the drainage basin and some of the sanitary sewer. The other point that I'd like to make is once we get a contractor on board, we will be having a number of meetings to inform all of the business owners and residents along that corridor again, giving them the information on how the staging will get more into detail on how it will affect their property, very similar to what we worked with the properties on Phase 1.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Gaines. I will now declare this hearing closed and move on to item E4, which is a resolution approving and adopting the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the University Avenue Reconstruction Project, Phase 2, McLean Drive to Midway Drive. Is there a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Any further comments by council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
Six voting aye, one voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item F is old business. F1 is Pass Ordinance 2892, amending Section 29107 of the Code of Ordinances by removing property located in the vicinity of University Avenue and McLean Drive from the R1 to the MPC district upon its third and final consideration. Is there a motion, please?
To pass Ordinance 2892, third and final.
Second.
Motion second. Any further comments by council? Roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. F2 is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a developmental procedural agreement relative to property located in the vicinity of University Avenue and McLean Drive. Is there a motion, please?
Motion to approve the developmental procedures agreement.
Motion second. Any further comment by council? Roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item F3 is Pass Ordinance 2893, amending Chapter 26, Traffic and Motor Vehicles of the Code of Ordinances relative to prohibiting parking on portions of Bluegrass Circle upon its third and final consideration. Is there a motion, please?
So,
I think it's been motioned and second. Any further comments by council? Roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item G is new business. G1 is the consent calendar. The following items will be acted upon by a voice vote with a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or public requests that an item be pulled separately. Is there any such requests from the public, from the council?
G1A.
G1A. I'm sorry, am I seeing that? G1?
First one.
G1, okay. Beg your pardon. Anything further? I'll now summarize the items on the consent calendar. Item A is approve the recommendation of the mayor relative to the reappointment of the members to the board and commission. It'd be Susan DeBoer for the Board of Appeals. Pardon me. Is that what you wanted to pull?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I thought I heard you say G1.
G1A.
G1A, sorry, yep, sorry about that. So we will not act on that at this time. We'll circle back through that very specifically. Summarizing the items outside of item G1A is item B, receive and file the Committee of the Whole minutes of January 3rd relative to the following items: parking concerns on Ellen Street and bills and payroll. Item C is approve and adopt action taken by the Committee of the Whole on January 3rd relative to parking concerns on Ellen Street. D is receive and file communications from the Civil Service Commission relative to certified lists for the following positions: police captain, lieutenant, and police officer, and stormwater specialist. Item E is receive and file the 2016 annual reports of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Board of Adjustment, Historic Preservation Commission, Group Rental Committee, Board of Rental Housing Appeals, and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. F is receive and file the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of the cost for the 2017 sanitary sewer rehabilitation project. And E is approving various permits and licenses. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar minus G1A?
Move to approve minus G1A.
A motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Moving back to G1A, that does read, approve the recommendation of the mayor relative to the reappointment of members to the Board of Commissions. That would be Susan DeBoer, to various boards of appeal. Is there a motion to approve, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Are there comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to emphasize the need that occasionally we need to have term rotation, and I think that Mrs. DeBoer has served this for as long as I've been on council, and probably a decade or more. And then also currently, I believe she's in charge of the administration committee. I just think that's a lot of influence and a little rotation there. So for future mayoral appointments, I want to encourage you to consider other council members.
Thank you. Any further comments?
I'll pass one on that. Just, I think on A, it's gender equity, so I do encourage other women to run for council. That way another woman could do these things.
Are the boards gender balanced? Are those appeal boards?
Yes, there is the strong suggestion to have gender equity on those boards of appeals as well. This item is already on the table. All in favor of G1A signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Next item is the resolution calendar. The following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote and a single motion without separate discussion. Unless someone from the council or public requests that an item be pulled separately for discussion. Is there any such request from council? Mr. Blanford.
I would like to pull item 2C and 2D.
2C and 2D. Any others from council?
Yes, I'd like to pull item H.
Item H, pulled Mr. Wieland. Any others from council?
Item F.
Item F, Mr. Tiber.
Frank.
F is in Frank?
Frank.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Any from the public?
Be recognized.
Very good. I'll summarize the items in the resolution calendar for a vote minus C, D, F, and H. A and B are personnel items. Item E is approving execution of an agreement relative to discharge of water. G is approving the preliminary plat of McMahill First Edition. I is resolution approving and authorizing execution of a partial release of real estate mortgage, purchase agreements, and various other easements in conjunction with the University Avenue Reconstruction Project Phase 2. Item J is resolution approving and authorizing execution of a temporary easement and a permanent easement in conjunction with the Dry Run Creek Sanitary Sewer Improvements Project. K is approving execution of a proposal for demolition and site clearance and proposed form of contract relative to the storage facility located on East 5th Street. L is resolution setting February 6th as the date of public hearing on the proposed plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2017 sanitary sewer rehabilitation project. Is there a motion to approve the resolution calendar minus C, D, F, and H?
So moved.
Motion second. Any further comments by council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
Voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Circling back to item C. Item C is a resolution approving and adopting certain revised personnel policies. Is there a motion to approve, please?
Move to adopt item C.
Motion second. Any further comments?
I just have some questions. I don't know if Jennifer, you want to take these, or if Ron will be able to cover these, but under section 811, it's referencing employee use of social media. There's a section that lists where employees are prohibited from posting content, and then it lists a number of criteria what's prohibited. And one of the items says accounts of events that occur within the city. I'm just wondering if that needs to be clarified a little bit, because that's pretty generic. Are we talking about events that just occur within Cedar Falls? Or are we talking about events that occur as part of their employment with the city? Or what are we trying to get to with that?
Any staff have comment on that?
I can address that. I think what it's directed to is city employees engaged in their normal day-to-day activities. They're required, if an event occurs, to make a report to other city staff. And that's the procedure that the city requires versus going on social media and posting something about that individual event. I think that's what the policy is directed at, since it's directed to personal social media use.
Okay. I'm just wondering if that maybe isn't as clear with that particular language as it possibly should be. And then a second question I have on the next page, still in section 811, we have a paragraph that talks about administrative investigations and providing access to personal platforms to the city as part of that investigation. Do employees have any expectation of privacy when granting access to the city from that perspective?
If you're referring to city staff use of city...
It's under the personal.
Okay, which one?
It's page 151 in the packet, subsection E. Under section 6.
Yes. Ordinarily, an employee using personal social media would have an expectation of privacy unless there's a clear and distinct relation to their job performance or job duties, in which case, in those narrow circumstances, the city would have the right to inquire into and obtain access to personal social media that has a direct bearing on an investigation such as employee discipline or even criminal activity.
Who's making that determination of relevance? Is that their department head? Is that city attorney's office? Who's making that distinction?
Starts with supervisor to department head, and the city attorney would give final okay, something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any further comments on item C by the council? This too is already on the table. This requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item D reads, resolution approving adopting the fiscal year 18 city council goals and objections. Is there a motion to approve, please?
Move to approve.
Motion second, and now take further comments by council.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to give us the opportunity to have some discussion on it, because this is a pretty extensive document that our staff puts a lot of time into, so I wanted to at least have the opportunity for that. And then I have a couple of items at minimum that I would like us to discuss, if nobody else has anything.
Any further comments from council at this point? Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, and it's a small issue, but in a couple of sections we talk about utilizing calls for service when evaluating locations for fire and police stations. I think it's important that we make a notation too that while we will use the highest number of calls for service when we're planning these stations, I think we also need to note that we want to provide adequate coverage citywide. I think that's an important distinction to make, that we're not going to focus exclusively on quantity of calls.
I guess I want to ask formally if that's an addendum you're asking for. Otherwise, the approval of D, I believe, will be as read or as stated.
I would move that be added
Okay.
to that section.
Okay. Any further comments?
And then the second, I just wanted to get some staff input and some council input too. There's a section that talks about special water assessment programs to install water systems in unserviced areas. My understanding is this has been on council goals for quite some time. I'm just wondering if we have any plan in place to make progress on it, or if we've had any discussions about this at all, or if we're going to continue to list it in our goals, I would like us to see a plan in place about how we're going to move forward with this, rather than just keep using it as a placeholder. We need to actually take some steps to get this done.
Any comments from staff in relation to that item?
I think we've worked several times with the Cedar Falls utilities to make this happen. and there just wasn't the interest to move it forward. But I think the reason that it stays in the goals is if it ever comes up there's an opportunity or a funding opportunity or a large growth of interest in the program, that it is still a goal from the City Council that we would try to make some of those things happen.
Are there some, I guess, different ways or more innovative ways we could look at it instead of, I guess, the way we have done it? I'm just wondering if we're going to continue to have it there, if we need to start looking for more innovative solutions to providing the service, or if we've investigated any other options at all.
I would have to get back to you on what some of those could be.
I think it's a worthwhile discussion that we should at least talk about.
And aside from any action or no action today, the next year goal setting, obviously, it could be brought up to be pertinent with the entire council at goal setting too. I appreciate it. Any further comments by council? More concerns, Mr. Blanford? Very good. This item's already on the table. This requires a roll call vote, please.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Was there an amendment then?
Yes.
Oh, there was an amendment. I beg your pardon. I heard you say that you would not want that to be
No,
amendment.
yeah, I do.
Okay.
I would move that amendment be made to that particular section.
So you're talking about on page 6, the utilizing call for service one?
It's actually in
Page
two
162 or page
places.
6, depending on how you want to call it.
Yeah, and I think it's also on page 8. There's a repeat of that paragraph, I think.
Okay.
Do you need a second there then?
Yes.
Second.
Second on the amendment moved by Council Blanford. This amendment would require a roll call vote, please. I'm sorry?
You don't need a roll call vote for the amendment. You can just do a voice vote.
Okay, voice vote for an amendment in the resolution calendar. Thanks, Jackie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
That amendment does carry.
Nick was nay there.
Nay, one nay. Thanks, Nick. And moving to the original, I believe, correct? It's on the table. This requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to item F. It reads, resolution approving and authorizing execution of a release of real estate mortgage relative to an agreement for private development. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Open up for further comments by council. Mr. Tiber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had one question. This is an economic development zone, and one of the things that we strive to do in our TIF district is to actually increase taxable value, but this is actually a decrease. Could you identify what the decrease is and maybe what some of the budget implications are?
I think the taxable value is around $4.5 million right now, being sold to a tax-exempt entity. That value will be removed from the tax records. One thing that we are looking at doing in potential agreements in the future is see if we can include language in those type of agreements to either prohibit the sale to a tax-exempt entity or at least make it more difficult to do so.
Thanks, Bob.
Very good. Any further comment by council? Item F. Yes, sorry. Yes, Susan.
Well, this actually just was releasing the mortgage that was satisfied, correct?
That's correct. Right.
Does it have anything to do with this tax?
Well, the building being sold to a tax-exempt entity impacts the taxable value and the budget to some degree. So that's the point being made. But yes, this is simply releasing the mortgage. The agreement terms have been satisfied and completed.
This item is on the table. Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item H is a resolution approving a central business district overlay zoning district site plan for facade improvements at 116 through 118 Main Street. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. We'll open up to council comments.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I asked that this be pulled for location 116 Main Street. It's a location that's been occupied by a company called Brits since March of last year. And since they've occupied that, they wanted their brand color to be used in their storefront. Their brand color is pink. I'm not interested in the pink, I'm interested in the entrepreneurial spirit that we offer to new companies coming into our community. The owner of this business, Kristen Dolash, started in Waverly 2 years ago. She already has made $1 million on her products, which are cosmetics for people who don't want cosmetics with artificial ingredients. She's got a production facility in Waverly with 15 to 18 people last time I checked. She has been before the Community Main Street Design Review Board at least three times to my knowledge, with different versions of pink to get it approved, her brand color, and has been denied. The most recent activity was taken and is now being presented to this council, and it does not include any input from Kristen Dolash. It was instead presented to the owner of the business without her being involved at all. I find that's a tragic error. First of all, because we have a Community Main Street Design Review that has no criteria for color at all. It's arbitrary and capricious to that group to decide what the color is, and then they're a recommending body only. They can only recommend. Earlier in this year, I recommended to the mayor that we put the Community Main Street Design Review Board under our P&Z group so that they could get everything out at the same time rather than dragging issues on and on. That was not done. And I want to read to you a memo that I received from Ms. Dolash 3 days ago. And it's very disturbing to me. Some of you will say, well, she's bitter. But if you read what she's saying, she's not bitter. She's stating facts and how she was treated in this community. And I read it now. This came out to the mayor, Jim Brown. It came out to all of us council people. It starts out, "Hi, Mayor Brown and council. I hope you are doing great. I wanted to touch base with you regarding Ruth's storefront. I know you are aware of this situation and our disappointment with Community Main Street Design Review Committee and Planning and Zoning and City Council. I wanted you to know that we are opening our 3rd store in Iowa City next month in the heart of the famous pedestrian mall, 115 South Dubuque Street. That's very similar to our Community Main Street. I wanted you to know that they not only have approved our signature pink storefront, but they were also supportive of our branding and were excited for Ruth to come to Iowa City. The experience I had with Iowa City, who contacted me about our new location, hopes that we would locate there, has been night and day from what we went through with the Community Main Street Design Committee. On Monday, that's today, you will be approving a proposed storefront for our Cedar Falls store. This proposal is being made by our landlord and has been approved by Community Main Street as well as P&Z. Ruth did not approve this, nor did we like it. I understand we do not own the building and that my business is located in, but I find that this design still reflects onto my business and my brand. And I'll go away from the report a little bit. Branding, if you've studied marketing, is one of the 3 things you can do to corner a market. It's that important to a business. And here's a businesswoman that's made $1 million. She continues, I don't know what possible options there are at this point. Once our lease is up and we have recouped some of the money we poured into making that place shine for Cedar Falls Street, we will be taking our business elsewhere. I love our Cedar Falls customers and they love having us, but the politics surrounding Community Main Street and the volunteers on your design committee are terrible. She goes on to say they were insulting about her brand. And she says in closing, it breaks my heart and it hurts my business to leave Cedar Falls Main Street. But it is obvious to me that our brand is not welcome here. I find that tragic because Iowa City hopped on that. And we're going to get $1 million business away from us because of the color pink, a brand color that an advising committee tried to push onto a business. If I was a business partner and I had a brand and somebody says, I don't like your brand, I'd go elsewhere too. I think it's time we took some action. It's too late here. She's moving. She's already said she's going. But I think it's time that we changed how we approve businesses in Cedar Falls Main Street. And I will give them credit. They've done a great job. They have an investment in that part of the city. They have a right to decide what goes on there. But we're trying to involve entrepreneurs and moving to our community. We just turned off one that came up with a marvelous idea. In 2 years has made a profit and is going to have stores all over the country. We won't be a part of that. Thank you. Oh, I would, in closing, I would like to say, if someone would modify the motion before us tonight to allow Rhett to use the original color pink on that storefront, I would gladly welcome and second it. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. A couple of comments, and we certainly open up to staff, or excuse me, to council. But the staff and I did discuss various steps when that initially came up to avoid this process confusion that was taking place. There was a lot of stakeholders involved. And we did meet with stakeholders involved with Community Main Street. Director Gaines and myself will continue to reach out to these stakeholders. Like you indicated, it's probably too late now. But my main concern from that same note that Krista sent was the back of the building is still pink. And so something is broken there, I think, from the consistency, and it just needs to be worked on. But we did make those efforts in those stands early on. You're asking to pull 116 Main Street off of this resolution, but this is to the business, this is based on the building owner? Mm-hmm. So we can't have a resolution per se to let Krista paint it pink. We can allow the resolution or amend it to allow the business owner to allow her to go pink, right?
I would look for council to make that recommendation. I would certainly second it.
Okay, it is on the table to amend this resolution. Hearing and seeing no further comments, this item again is already on the table, requires a roll call vote, please.
6 voting aye, 1 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item H, is there a motion to approve or allow bills and payroll?
Move to pay the bills and payroll.
Second.
Motion second. This requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item I, is there any city council referrals this evening? Hearing and seeing none, move to any city council updates. Any updates from the council this evening?
I guess I'd like to say something.
Sure.
We sat here tonight and had a variety of issues come up, questions arise, and questions that our staff weren't necessarily prepared to answer. And I just want to compliment our staff on how well prepared they are, how hard they work, how knowledgeable you are. Despite our last discussion, maybe there's some ordinances or whatever we need to review, but I think it's our staff that makes this community great, and just wanted to thank all of you for being so well prepared.
Thank you. Yeah. Any further updates? I would like to add our best wishes to former Mayor Cruz of his upcoming tests with his health, as what was published in the newspaper. Item K is to move to executive session to discuss property acquisition per Iowa Code Section 21.5IJ and personnel matters per Iowa Code Section 2151I following public forum. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been motion second. Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item L is public forum. Speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics germane to city business. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak tonight? Hearing and seeing none, we will now adjourn to executive session. Good evening.